Hey guys, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'm here to address once again the elephant in the room, and that would be Deimos Base. So people are still having trouble. I wouldn't even say people are having trouble with it. This event is just ridiculous and the requirements are just insane for a normal play style. So let's go into Deimos Base and let's kind of talk about what the problem is. So let's go to like stage 7, right? So what's been happening lately in Deimos Base is that they've been adding these damage over time or DOT effects to each stage. So starlight damage on floor 7, darkness, we have bleed, poison, etc. So that's all fine because what we've sort of realized is that a lot of our like recent characters, so say for example our Rugal here, they all have some kind of built-in immunity to dot. So basically this game is telling us that we need to start upgrading our characters if we want to be able to clear content. So you can see here he has immunity to chill, bleed, shock, stun, and fear. He doesn't have everything, but some other units do have everything else, so it should be fine in terms of finding units to clear stages 1 to 7. But when it comes to stage 8, it's a little bit of a different issue here. What we have are damage over time. So this is just straight up damage, and there's actually no way to mitigate this. Basically, the way that people have found to stop this is to use hyper armor. So hyper armor is a temporary thing that a lot of newer units have. So technically that does work, but the problem is it's only temporary. And if we look through Deimos Base, basically every stage sort of repeats and they have the different status effects. So by the time you get to any multiple of 8, so for example 16, it's the same thing, damage over time. So you have to figure out a way to do this, and you're gonna have to do it over and over again. So you have to figure out a way. You can't just like brute force your way through it. You have to figure out a way to stop it. So let's go into our Rugal here again, and I'll show you guys in terms of hyper armor. If you take a look at his skill 2, his hyper armor, that's skill 1, active 2 here, his hyper armor only lasts for 4 seconds. So what you need to do is, the problem with the level is it actually gives you the damage every 5 seconds. So even this 4 seconds doesn't even completely cover that 5-second stretch. So the other problem with this here, and I'm actually blocking it with my face, sorry about that. Let me kind of just, or actually maybe I'll just scroll it down instead of trying to stop my face here. I'll scroll it down to here. So hyper armor, and you can see that it lasts for 4 seconds. So that doesn't cover the 5 seconds. And then the other problem here is that every skill has a 10-second cooldown. So between 4 and 10 seconds, you have 6 seconds where you're completely like naked and you're not able to use this skill. So fortunately, there is at least some kind of way to deal with this, and that is to go into your battle cards. So for example, this Tekken card here, from the Tekken collab, this option card, it has a 1.9 second cooldown. So that helps to get rid of, out of the 6 seconds that you need, that's basically almost a third. So that's actually pretty good for one card. And then, so that card is limited, but this card right here is not limited. And it's the same thing. And there's other cards here that you can use. I think you could even use 2 of these that give 1.9 seconds. So that's pretty good. Well, one problem right off the bat is 1.9 and 1.9 don't add up specifically. So you would expect it to give you 3.8, but apparently having the 2 option cards doesn't add fully. It gives you about, instead of 3.8, I think it gives you about 3.1 if I'm not mistaken, or 3.2 or so. Let's kind of just leave it at that. So that is almost half. So it's about half of what you would need. So 3.2 out of 6 seconds. We're getting somewhere, right? So the other thing too that you can do is that there's 2 leadership units that you can use. So if we go scroll here and we look for, I believe it's 97 Joe. I get kind of confused with these numbers. Maybe it's 96 Joe. If we go to his profile, yeah, so this is not the right one. So he does gives a little bit of that, but that's not the right one. So I think it's this Joe right here. So you can see decreases base cooldown of balanced type fighters by 1.5 seconds. Not only do we have Joe, so Joe is restricted to only balanced type fighters. And then we also have King 95, who is for attack type fighters. So we have 2 of the 3 types covered, no problem. So actually there is a problem. If you're using a unit like Hwoarang here, who is defense type, he doesn't benefit from this at all. So I was kind of looking through, and there are some units that give a little bit, like we just saw that Joe, he gives a 0.8 to, I think that's to all units, but there's no specific, at least that I know of, one for defense. So right there, 1/3 of your fighters just aren't going to benefit from this. But if you do have either an attack fighter or a balanced fighter with the hyper armor thing on them, you can help decrease their cooldown by 1.5 seconds. So if we think about our 3.1 or 3.2 and add 1.5, we're up to 4.6 or 4.7. So we basically have 1.3 or so seconds that we still need to cool down. So the problem with that is that while that actually does cover a pretty decent amount of that cooldown that you need, that's not going to be enough, because you pretty much have to be pretty perfect if you're going to be using it that way. You have to pretty perfectly time your button presses, your inputs. So that's sort of a viable way to do it. I haven't actually tested that, but that's definitely at least something that you can do, right? So now here we have a way to be able to reach the full 10-second cooldown, and that is with Hwoarang. If you have an EX Hwoarang, you can go into his skills here, and you can see that he actually has an ability here called motion stance. And so what that does, well, first of all, his hyper armor is on an attack called Skyrocket. So Skyrocket, he gets that same 4 seconds that Hwoarang gets. So with the battle cards and everything, it comes down to about 1.3 seconds. But then he also has a skill called motion switch. So let's go into here. You can see that it decreases Skyrocket cooldown by 3.5 seconds. So not only does it do the 1.5 seconds, but it's even more so you don't even need to bring Joe or King with you. So you could just basically use this, have the 2 cards equipped, and you could pretty much consistently always use this. So you need at least an A1. So even with an A1, you need A1 just to even get into Deimos Base. But even with an A1, even if you don't have them at A3, A5, whatever, you're able to use Hwoarang here and have complete and total coverage for the hyper armor. But so this is already one issue that I want to point out here. He's essentially an OP unit, so I'm not even sure if this was even intended by the developers. So he's essentially an OP unit. If you have all this stuff equipped, you can technically not take damage for the entire match. And if this works in PvP, you pretty much have an invincible fighter, and all you have to do is keep hitting your hyper armor and doing this cooldown. You basically have an invincible fighter, right? So you only need A1 and you have an invincible fighter here. So that to me just doesn't seem like good game design. Like the only way to beat this perfectly is to use this invincible fighter here. This is kind of like ridiculous to me. And I just don't think that this is the intended way. Like this works for sure, but I don't think this is the intended way to have to do this. Kind of just doesn't really make sense to me. Okay, That being said, let me go into a video that I recorded that shows how I did it with Hwoarang. And actually I did it a different way the first time, but this is a replay of how I did it. So let's go into this video and you can see. So I started with the Joe leadership, and Joe's not even the right leadership for Hwoarang, so I kind of even messed that up. But you can see here, I bring in Hwoarang, I do my 1, and then, so I established a rhythm of 1 3 1 3. You can technically do 1 3 3 1 3 3, but for me it's easier in my mind to keep up the 1 3 1 3. So I would recommend to like not even try to fight these units. Just do your 1 3 1 3, run around, try not to get hit, and you won't take any damage. The problem is, the reason that I say to just run around instead of actually trying to fight is because if you're fighting the opponents, the enemies here, it's gonna spawn more enemies, and the enemies that are gonna spawn are those ball things. I know by now we all hate those ball things. The problem with those ball things is that they can actually hit you, and I don't know if it's because of my bad timing, I didn't time it correctly, or if they just get through the hyper armor, but it's really annoying to get hit by them. And if you do get hit by them, you're pretty much screwed, because you're gonna lose the match, you're gonna get stunned, you know, all this stuff. And it's just really annoying, because if that does happen to you, you're gonna have to repeat the level. Granted, this level is only 2 minutes, but other levels in this take a lot longer, so you don't want to have to repeat the level. That's a very annoying thing about Deimos Base, is if you mess up, you have to repeat your level. So right now I've only got 30 seconds left, and at the 1 minute mark it'll summon the boss, Polly Sylvie, whatever her name is. So that's something to keep in mind, but honestly, just run around for the 2 minutes. And you can see I'm pretty much at perfect HP, just doing the trick. And honestly, if you're at perfect HP, I think in general there's something wrong with this. Like, this shouldn't be the way that you have to do to clear content in this game, to clear an event. So you can see I finished it with perfect life, and I get the clear screen here. So with all that being said, that's how you do it. If you have an A1 Hwoarang, you can do it. You don't need any kind of CPU. You just need to have them on A1, and then you can be invincible. So to me, that doesn't sound like a good unit design, because you now have an OP invincible unit, which is terrible. Okay, so let me also show you how I got killed here. So I'm doing the same trick, and I actually get hit by one of these ball things. I get stunned, I get juggled, and all of a sudden, you know, getting back into rhythm is impossible, and I just end up quitting out just to not lose my Hwoarang here, because that would be terrible. So let me talk a little bit about what I don't like about Deimos Base. So again, I already mentioned that if you take damage like that, you pretty much have to reset and start over. So whatever 10 minutes you spent playing the level, you now have to start over. I haven't gotten that far in Deimos Base, but I can imagine there's now a 10-minute timer. Playing through a level for 10 minutes and then potentially losing is not fun at all, and it's not something that I want to be doing. I have limited free time and limited weekend time, and that's just not what I want to do what I want to be doing. To me, that's not fun. I understand that free-to-play games have to have a way to keep you playing. I understand that, and I know it takes time to make like actual good content, and pumping this content out every week or every couple of weeks is hard. So whatever, I understand free-to-play games, but honestly, personally, I don't think I really want to be playing a level like that for so long. It's just, and then have to go through 50 floors. That to me is just not fun content. I don't want to be doing any of that. So that is my criticism on Deimos Base. And on top of that, you know, they've messed up with the HP recovery. They give you limited potions. So it would be one thing if they gave you the potions ahead of time, but they don't. In other, you know, free-to-play games, in terms of survival modes or tower modes, they give you a certain way to recover your HP, either daily or, you know, by potions or whatever it is. They give you a way to do it. In this game, they give you your potions only if you die, So it's kind of like really weird. Like the buffs do help, but this is kind of like, to me, this is kind of like not really that great. So, okay. Aside from using Hwoarang, or there's a glitch with Devil Jin that you can do. Aside from using one of those two units, what can you potentially do in this? So there's a reason they have Mr. Big here. And I was just kind of looking, I was like literally looking through all the leadership skills. And I saw that his leadership skill actually reduces damage taken by 30. And I was like, yes, I found something amazing here. You can reduce your damage taken. It just says damage taken, so it's like any damage taken. I think this does work for the DOT. However, the 30% is really not that much. If it was working, I found myself dying either way, so this was just not that amazing. There's other things you can do in terms of surviving these damage over time levels. So what I would think to do, I was sort of, again, I try to look at the free-to-play units, so I was looking at Rugal. I was hoping Rugal would be like the hero that we all needed, but considering we have that cooldown with Hwoarang, I think that's essentially what makes Hwoarang viable, is just having that extra cooldown on his stance changing ability. So if you look through here, you can see that he actually has cooldown decreasing for some of his other moves. Desperate Ray does the same for Kaiser Wave, but there's no way to decrease the cooldown on Genocide Cutter specifically, so you're kind of like out of luck with that. If we look at his effects here, you can see that he actually has a way, if he's in auto mode, he can decrease his cooldowns by 100%, so you actually don't even have to worry, but you lose control of him. You basically are not able to use skills or movement. That's kind of the caveat, and ultimate moves are not used, so that's actually good in this case. So technically through RNG, if you get lucky and he perfectly times out his second skill, you can technically get through this without taking any damage. I actually tried this and it worked for like a good like 40 seconds, but that was only one time, and every other time I tried it, it just didn't work. It lasted like maybe 4 seconds or whatever, so that was kind of not that good. So as I mentioned before, he's a defense fighter, so he doesn't benefit from any leadership skills, but there are a lot of units. He's still a free-to-play unit, and there's a lot of units that have the hyper armor, so he has 4 seconds here. There's a lot of free units that have the hyper armor, so if we go to Nina here, she has hyper armor on her skill 2 or 3. Maybe it's 1. Oh, it's on her skill 1 actually. So she has hyper armor. Let me scroll that down a little bit, for 4 seconds. So she's actually a pretty good one. If we go to, I think it's both regular Chun-Li and EX Chun-Li. They also have the hyper armor. So this is 3 seconds. So that's actually not as good as 4 seconds. That 1 second does make enough of a difference. Granted, 3 or 4 seconds either way are just not enough. And then this Chun-Li also has it. You can see like some of them are skill 1. She has 3 seconds. Some of them are skill 1, some are 3, some are 2. So that's kind of annoying. Because what you can also kind of take into account is that your Deimos Base gives you buffs here. So this does active 3. There's a 10% chance of doing cooldown by 1 second. So that could technically help you. Probably as you build these buffs up, that'll help you even more. But it's a 10% chance, and it's only for active skill 3 or whatever one you choose. Here's another one here where it's... I have it here somewhere. Maybe because I went back to skill 8, to level 8. It's not giving me all my buffs. Yeah. So... I think maybe it's this one. This one. I don't know where it is. There's another one for active skill 3 somewhere. Yeah, 4% chance to reset your active skill 3. So you could technically use this to sort of help you add that extra 1 second or completely reset the cooldown. However, it's on a 10-second cooldown. That one's on a 10-second cooldown. And this one's on a 5-second cooldown. but it's every time you use your skill and it's a percentage chance. So it's not really a great way to do this. It'll sort of help you, but it's not the greatest way to do this. So again, let's keep looking. So another person who has hyper armor here is Kusanagi, wherever he might be. So you can definitely use Kusanagi to help with that. And that would be right here. He's also a 3-second one. Another one is Nina, EX Nina. Another one is actually Shermie. So sure, a lot of these are units that you would have to have pulled for. So you could technically have one of these units as a free-to-play player. So in that sense, you're probably okay. And then of course, if you pulled for Athena or Lady Chin, I'm pretty sure they have hyper armor or the immunity or something, right? So those can help you get through with that. So what do I suggest doing? Again, I was kind of looking through all the leadership skills. There are some skills that have active cooldown or tag cooldown. But the thing with tag is that it's like a 15-second cooldown. So I don't really think that's going to help you that much. What I would think to do is to bring 3 units that have the hyper armor. So let's just go into Shermie, for example. Shermie, it's somewhere in here. She's got so much stuff. Okay, so Shermie has a 4-second cooldown, so she's one of the better ones. What I would think to do is to try to, you're gonna take damage no matter what, but try to use your hyper armor skill and then try to awaken yourself as quickly as possible, and then try to just keep spamming that hyper armor skill every 4 seconds. Try to time it out as well as you can, and then just switch to one of your other units. So you're gonna have to keep cycling through your 3 units. Hopefully you have 3 with 4-second hyper armor, and just keep cycling through them. Hopefully they have that cooldown card, and just keep cycling through them. I think that's pretty much the best I could come up with for a free-to-play player if you don't have Hwoarang. So I think that's pretty much the best you can do. The other thing is that you have your Deimos Base potions. So I think one of your units will eventually go down. So you're going to have to try to use one of those potions to try to revive. I don't even know exactly how many potions they give us, but that is a potential way to do it. And then on top of that, there is the buffs for HP recovery. So the support skills, very hard to work with those, but these kind of do work. But again, you're going to have to go through regular levels of Deimos Base with your non-hyper armor units with immunities. So you're going to probably lose some of those units over time. And I think that to me, it just makes this like way too much trouble than it's worth, personally for me, and I'd rather just spend my time doing something else. So yeah, that's sort of what it is in terms of tips. In terms of this BS memory or SS memory, whatever it is, there's other ways to get this. Like, I'm almost done with this, and the Athena one I completely finished. So if you want another source of BS and SS memories, there you go. I'd rather just do that. And then this is not necessarily specifically a BS or SS memory, but I am most of the way through this. I've spent a ton of potions trying to get through this. So yeah, this is another way to get a SS or BS fighter. So these are selectors, so that's actually pretty good. You can use those in the future. But I'd rather not spend my time on Deimos Base as it currently is. I would prefer for them to make some changes. And like I was saying, in other games, they give you potions, or they give you a way to reset your life, your HP. So losing a unit isn't as bad as it is here in King of Fighters All-Star. What I would like to see is if they would actually nerf a lot of these stronger units so that all your other units are sort of on an equal playing ground, and then maybe give you some kind of potions and not have ridiculous hyper armor requirements to get through this. Now, I think the actual problem with Deimos Base is the developer resources. Like, there's only a certain amount of developers that they have making this game, And I'm sure that's going through making new characters, which obviously we all want new characters and new cool things. But I think they really need to use their time and focus on actually figuring out a way to develop some balanced content and yeah, figure out a way to sort of do a little bit better in terms of this. So with all that being said, I think I'm going to end it there. I actually had to re-record this because I recorded this full video and I forgot to turn on the mic. So yeah, hopefully any of those ideas help you guys. There's ways you can do it, and if you really want to struggle through this, then by all means use one of these ways. But I personally, I'm good. I have enough BS and SS memories, I have enough selectors, and I feel like they're going to give us more in the future. So I'm just gonna focus my energy on deciding who to give those to rather than trying to max out the potential on who to get. So yeah, and there's only one other thing I wanted to mention, and I know people are kind of upset at Forgo, but honestly I think Forgo is like one of the most positive people on YouTube in general, but in terms of these free-to-play games, you kind of really have to stay positive with these games, otherwise they're just not fun. So just wanted to take a look at this Rugal right here. So he's the Rugal that you have to kind of pay for, or use your rubies or whatever. So if we take a look at Rugal here, he is a premium unit. He does have immunity to burn, bleed, shock, stun, and fear, so that's actually pretty good. He also has this immunity, complete immunity for 2 seconds. Not good in terms of cooldown. It's a 30-second cooldown, but could probably help in some way. But if we look here, he does actually have hyper armor, and it is a 4-second one. So sorry if I'm blocking that. It is a 4-second one, so he is one of the better units. So you got to realize that in terms of Forgo's point, what he's saying is that he spent so much on this and like this unit, and he's not able to breeze through Deimos Base, or he gets destroyed. But you are actually able to use his hyper armor, and he is an attack character, so you can use King with him. So you do have that 1.3 second window where he can take damage, but you can technically use this Rugal if you have him. Most of us don't have him, and even myself, I have him, but he's not awakened level 1, so I can't use him in Deimos Base. So that's kind of a bummer, but he is one of the units who potentially you can use to help you get through this tower, basically. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say. This video is already long enough, and I already spent an hour because I previously recorded this video of my life. So I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna try to enjoy my actual real life and have fun in real life. So I'll catch you guys later, and I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully this was helpful to someone. So peace out. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.